Hey, Dr. Matt here, and I'm excited to walk through this video with you, and I just want you to know that it was made exactly with you in mind. And I know that as you start your journey to try to just figure out what health truly is and how to feel better and how to look better and just how to be able to get through your day better, I know that this information is going to be extremely impactful. So I want you just to know that as you go through, I'm going to outline and give you really 10 things, 10 questions that you really should be asking if you want to just see better health for you and your family. And then I'm also going to outline the exact steps that you can start to take to make sure that you just get amazing results with your health. And it's going to do things to help you optimize your weight. It's going to do things to help maximize energy levels and make sure you're getting great sleep. But also, it's just going to help you to feel better each and every day, and just to make sure that your body is functioning the way it's supposed to function and not in a place where you're just used to what you're used to. You're tolerant of where you are, and your new normal has just become average. I think most of you know, and some of you don't, that I spent seven years of my life traveling very heavily with athletics. And so I worked with Team USA, I worked with the UFC for 2.5 years. I worked with collegiate athletes, high school athletes, and some professional. And over the course of that time, I spent the majority of my traveling in and out of airports, on airplanes, and every time I would land in the destination city, I would have to get a rental car. And I don't know if any of you have ever gotten rental cars before, but that's what I always ended up doing. So I would get the rental car, I would drive to the venue, and it was time for me to get set up, to get ready, and to take care of these athletes to make sure they're performing at their highest level. Well, typically the way my schedule would work is I would get to those events, I would cover the entire event, but then right when the event was over, it was time to scramble back to the airport because I was trying to get back to be with my family. And so I remember one of these trips, I was in Denver, and as I'm driving this rental car, knowing that before I take this rental car back to the airport, there's one thing that I know I have to do, and that is fill it up with gas, right? You know that. Because if you don't, they will do it for you, but they're going to charge, $75 a gallon to do it. And so before you go back, you always pull off, you fill up the rental car, and then you take it in. And so not, really thinking about the fact that I wasn't in my vehicle, I pull into this gas station, I jump out of the car, I put the card in, I get the nozzle out, I turn around to put the gas nozzle in the car, only to realize that I'm on the wrong side. And so because I'm in a hurry, I don't have time to cancel and do all that stuff, so I literally lay the gas nozzle down on the ground, which I'm sure you're not supposed to do. I pull forward, I back up, I pull back in, and then I'm trying to get this going. So as I'm filling up this car, all of a sudden I just noticed this gentleman, he kind of walks over, and he asked me, he says, did you pull in on the wrong side the first time? And I'm thinking, yeah, I did. Did you actually just walk over here to ask me that? But anyway, he said that, listen, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck here. What I'm trying to do is help you. And he said that, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you're in your vehicle, if you look at the gas gauge, there's actually an arrow on that gas gauge that lets you know which side of the vehicle the gas tank's on. And I'm like, no way, no there's not. And because I literally did not know that. And some of you probably know that, but I didn't. So I didn't know that. And so I go in there and I look at that gas gauge, and lo and behold, like right in front of me, there's an arrow showing me that the gas gauge is on the right side of the car on this vehicle instead of the left, which it is on mine. And so I'm thinking, well, I know my car doesn't have that. I know my truck doesn't have that. So anyway, finish it out, take the rental car back, get on the airplane, fly back, get to St. Louis. And as soon as I get in my truck, guess what the first thing that I'm looking for is? You got it. I'm looking to see if that arrow is there. And what's crazy is I've had my truck for over 10 years, not ever realizing that arrow is staring back at me the whole time. And I guess the reason I share that is because I know that many of you have encountered us or met us in a place where you're trying to figure out what's going on with your health, why your body is doing what it's doing. And what I want you to know is that just like that arrow is in front of me every single day, the answer to your health is right in front of you. And truthfully, the answer to your health is actually right inside of you. We just have to be able to help you identify it. And as we do that, you will see this body come to life. You will see a body that maybe you've given up on, maybe you're just frustrated with, maybe you think you're just getting old, so that's the way it's going to be. you will see that same body as it gets momentum. You will see that same body improve, get stronger, get momentum back, become more efficient, and the symptoms that you have will start to go away, because the only reason they were there in the first place was to let you know something wasn't right. And until that question was asked of why, you just were never going to get there. And so for us, as we go through, it's all about the questions, because the questions lead to the answers that you're looking for. And so as you walk through this with me, make sure you're ready. Get your pen and paper ready to go, because we're going to give you nuggets and keys to make sure that you get the best results as fast as you absolutely can, because I know that's important to you, and the truth is it's extremely important to me. And so let's do this. So as we step into actually taking our health in a different direction and truly focusing on trying to get you the best results as fast as possible, it really starts with the questions that we ask. And the questions that we ask are so important, because if we're not asking the right ones, we're not going to get the outcomes that we want. And I will tell you that it's so evident that our entire lives we have been taught the questions to ask in relation to our health, and this is extremely important. And most of the time we don't even realize it, and we just do it. And so the first question that we all ask right out of the gates is, how do I feel? Like, what do I feel like every day? And if we don't feel well, and we don't feel well long enough, it typically will lead us to the next question, which is, what is it? And once we get to that what is it question, we will do a couple things. We'll either go and see a doctor or a healthcare provider of some kind, or we'll start out, and typically this is the way it starts, is we start out by jumping on the internet. We jump on the internet and we go to Dr. Google and we start digging in, and we put the symptoms in, and let's say it's a headache, we put the symptoms in, we hit enter, and the next thing you know, it could be anything from a hair falling out to brain cancer. And the truth is that there's such, a wide variety of options whenever we're just, poking and looking for a needle in a haystack on Google. But typically what that will lead to finally, if it persists, is you going and seeing some type of healthcare provider. And at that point, it's the same questions. It's how do you feel? What are the symptoms? And then leading to what's the diagnosis. And so once that diagnosis is made, it feeds us right into that next question, which is, how do we treat it? And we have all been convinced that health will come from nothing other than something outside of our body. And that truly is not the case. And it couldn't be further from the truth, but that's just what we've been taught. And the problem is that leads to the how do we treat it question, and that's where it stops. And so for us, as we start to shift the way we think, if we really want to do something different, we have to ask the question why. Why is it there? Why is it not getting better? Why does it keep coming back? And that's a question that I didn't even know to ask. And as I grew up, and I grew up in a family that was very medical. We weren't natural, holistic, vitalistic. We were in the medical model, just like everyone else. And so anytime there was a symptom that came up, you can bet that we were reaching for something to take, because that's just what we did. And as we continued through our lives, and I was growing up and going to college and went to chiropractic school, it was still the same philosophy. So we just keep operating out of the same paradigm. And then eventually, as I was just getting ready to graduate, as my mom's health continued to be affected and suffer throughout the course of my life, it finally came to a head where the headaches that she was having were so debilitating, and the thyroid wasn't working, and bowels weren't working, and dizziness was in, and ringing in the ears, and high blood pressure, and then mood was being affected. And all these things had remedies that came in some type of a bottle, but none asked the question why, until finally, just by doing testing, we found out that she's got a brain tumor right in the middle of her brain with adhesions and growth around optic nerves, which led us to the only options outside of surgery, because they couldn't go there, was some type of typical standard medical intervention in the form of medication and or chemo and or radiation. And at that point in time for me, it was completely life transforming, because it finally led me to that next question. Because if you have someone who's worked in the healthcare their entire life, who was a nurse, and then got into administration, and had access to all the doctors, and had access to all the testing, and had access to all the medications, I finally landed on that question of, how is this possible? Why is she getting sick? Why are so many people getting sick if this is the best we can do? And what I realized is that all the doctors that she had gone to, all the specialists that she had seen, not one of them had asked the question why. And so it was time. And that led to a whole other series of questions that I just want to walk you through tonight. And I'm going to share with you some of the most important questions that for you and your family you can ask if you truly want to be healthy, if you truly want to move your health in a different direction, and it will help you to get the results that you're looking for as fast as possible. So question number one, and this is something that I just would have never actually even thought about because we get so closed into our own world and we're so busy and we've got things going on all the time. But as this finally lands on your doorstep and is knocking on the front porch of someone close to you, you finally get this realization that something has to change. And so for me, I finally asked this question of, are Americans healthy? I mean, what do you think? And the truth is we're not. How about this one? Which country spends the most money on healthcare? Which country? Which one do you think? Which one do you think it is? Now, if you said the United States of America, you're exactly right. And this slide is old as far as being done, the study being done in 2008. But back in 2008, we spent $2 trillion on healthcare. And I wish I could tell you since then it's gotten better, but actually since then in 8 years, in 2016 and actually in 2017, we are at and over $3 trillion, which when you break that down per person, is more than double the next closest country. And so our spending is completely out of control. So how about this question? Which country takes the most medications? Which one do you think? I mean, check this out. We represent 5%, only 5% of the world's population, yet we take 75% of the world's prescription medications. 25 million pills per hour, every hour of every single day. 1 in 4 children right now in the US are on some form of prescription medication for a chronic condition, which guess what that means? They're not just taking it for a couple days. Guess how long they're taking it? You're exactly right, for their entire life. Unless we step in and lead them to something different. Now this is an extremely important question because of the other questions that we've asked, because we've talked about who spends the most, we've talked about who takes the most, but this is extremely important because depending on where we fall in regards to our health can actually show us how we're doing. And so where do you think the United States falls when it comes to all the industrialized countries in the world? Where do you think we fall? Towards the top because we're the healthiest, or towards the bottom because we're some of the sickest? So over the years they've done this study multiple times, and I feel like they keep doing it because they're just hoping that the outcomes will be different. But the one that we're looking at right here studied 40 industrialized countries rating overall health. And us in the United States, we didn't come in 20th, we didn't come in 15th, we didn't come in 30th. We came in 38th out of 40. With all the funding, with all the technology, with all the big buildings, with all these smart people, the outcomes just aren't there. And when we say we're the sickest, we literally are. We have more cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, disability, ear infections, allergy, asthma, autism, you name it, across the spectrum. We're the worst of the worst. And what's even scarier is that we are number 1 in infant mortality. So the truth is this. The current model that we have right now is truly failing. And it's not failing because it's full of bad people. It's not failing because the people in the system don't care. It's failing because the system itself is busted. It's because we, over the course of time, have just asked the wrong questions. And because of that, we're just getting nowhere. And what ends up happening is when we look at the symptoms as the problem, it just allows those problems to get worse and worse. And the truth is that what you see right here is a representation of asking the wrong questions and allowing the stress in our lives and the choices that we make every single day get out of control. So as a dad of two with an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old at home, this statistic right here really hits me, And what this is saying is that for the first time in the history of the world, that my kids, that generation of children, will be the first generation of children to not outlive their parents. And so here's the deal. This is about you. This is about your family. This is about the people who are closest to you. These are about the people that you go to church with, the people you work with, and the people that are impacted by whether or not you're well or you're not. And so as we go through this, don't forget how important this truly is. Don't forget how your health is directly connected to your purpose and your career and your ability to provide for your family. So are you as healthy as you want to be? Are your kids as healthy as you want them to be? Are your parents as healthy as you would like them to be? Why do we find ourselves in such a health crisis? Have you ever thought about that? Think about it. The biggest hospitals, the best technology, the best surgeries, the smartest doctors, the most money, the most drugs. Why are we in such a health crisis? After taking care of literally thousands and thousands of people, this is truly what I've found to be the underlying issues when it comes to the health that we see. And the first one is this: we have to start taking some ownership in where we are. We have to start taking responsibility. And the truth is that some of that responsibility has been taken from us because we have been convinced over the course of our life that whether we're sick or well has everything to do with our genetics, the germs around us, bad luck, and has little or nothing to do with the choices that we make and the stresses that we have. And so we have to start getting ourselves in a position and realizing that no one else is going to make sure that we're as healthy as we need to be. No one else is going to make sure that I am healthy enough to walk my daughter down the aisle or to be here to see her grandkids or to be able to continue to provide for my family and take care of my wife. No one else is going to do that for me. And then as we get into the position where we would like to take more responsibility, the next step is actually finding ourselves in a situation where we even know what health is, which seems crazy. But yet we spend so much time learning and focusing on sickness and disease and symptoms that oftentimes when I ask someone what they think health is, they don't even know. And the first answer that they usually rip out will be something along the lines of, well, it's how I feel or it's how I look. But then my next question would be, as cancer is building in your body, what does it feel like? As arteries are clogging up, what do they feel like? And they feel like nothing. So the true definition of health, if you look it up in the medical dictionary, is overwhelming balance and health and function in all areas, mentally, physically, and chemically. And your body is functioning at 100%, not merely just the absence of symptoms or disease or diagnosis. And that's truly what health is. And the last one we'll touch on in just a little bit. So right now I'm going to share with you 10 questions that you can start asking if you truly want to be healthy and to see your life shift in a different direction. So number one, are you designed to be healthy or sick? What do you think? What do you believe? What do you see around you? Can you be designed to be healthy yet live in a world that's always sick? Can there be a difference between what's actually normal and what's common? You are designed to be healthy. It's that simple. You were designed in perfection. You were designed to have energy, to be able to sleep, to be able to recover, to be able to heal, to be able to poop every day. That's all normal. You were designed to be healthy. Two little cells came together and multiplied and multiplied and multiplied until it turned into a baby within 10 months. And then that baby comes out and the mother's body can support that baby. And that is something that you don't lose. That power, that health is still inside of you. I remember when Brooke was pregnant and she was about 9 months pregnant with our first child, who was my daughter. And I remember, her being asleep, and I just was laying there, and I literally could see this foot coming out of her stomach, like kicking, coming out of her stomach. And I just remember thinking, like, how is she asleep right now? I mean, her belly, her shirt was like completely moving, and yet she was asleep. And I'm thinking, this truly is something that guys will never understand, but just shows you the amount of intelligence and the power and the ability for our bodies to function and heal and operate on their own, and that it does exist in there. So is your body smart or stupid? Now, oftentimes when I ask this, when you got to watch, because the wording is crucial here, is the body smart or is the body stupid? Not the person, not maybe the person that's watching this with you, not maybe the person you're married to, not your kids, not the person, but is their body smart or stupid? Your body is smart. I mean, it's unbelievably smart. It knows what to do. It knows when to do it. You're filled with 70 to 100 trillion cells, and in every single one of those cells you have a nucleus, and inside that nucleus lives your DNA, that double helix that you see there, those chromosomes filled with information and intelligence. And if you just took one of those cells and opened it up and pulled the DNA and stretched it out from one nucleus of one cell, it would go 7 miles. And if you tied all of the DNA together inside your entire body from those 70 to 100 trillion cells, they would go from here to the sun and back 120 times. That's the intelligence that we're working with here. That's the power of your body. And we have to be careful though, because sometimes we want to think that smart equals fun, or smart equals fits in our schedule, or smart equals something that we want it to do. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about your body, smart just equals this, that your body is going to do exactly what it needs to do at the instance that it needs to do it. So for instance, if you have high blood pressure, it's for a reason. Your body is doing that for a reason. The stress, the environment that's been created has caused a situation where that blood pressure has to be higher to get the blood through the vessels, the oxygen to the cells that need it. If you encounter a bacteria infection, a viral infection, your body most oftentimes will create this thing called, you got it, a fever, right? It increases its own temperature. How amazing is that? And the reason it does so is to kill that virus or bacteria. Yet, that very truth right there will challenge the exact belief systems that we've been taught. We've been taught that if you get a fever of any kind, 99.6, 100.1, that in that moment we're supposed to just take the medications to bury that fever, to get rid of that fever. But if that's your body doing the right thing at the right time, why would we want to stop it? If we stop that fever from fighting off that infection, not only are we creating a situation for recurring infections, we're also setting up ourselves to be in that situation itself, to be sick longer. And no one wants that. But the reason we do that is because that's what we've been taught. We do that because we have been created fearful when it comes to our body. And I'm not talking about 106 degree temperature, I'm talking about 100. Or even this situation, if you've ever eaten something that wasn't cooked properly. If you've ever had chicken that wasn't cooked and you ate it, and then as that food goes down into your stomach, and just a little bit later, you already start to feel that gurgle, right? Like, right? It starts to go, and you just know, like, this may not end well. And because your body is smart, right? Not enjoyable, not fun, not fits in the schedule, but because your body is smart, it may reject that food, and that may mean it may reject it from going upward, like out your mouth in a fast way. It may reject it going the other direction in a fast way, or it may actually reject it going the same direction or both directions at the same time. So out your mouth, out your other end, right? But it's not doing that to harm you. It's doing that to help you. Because if it could not do that, if your body wasn't smart enough to do that, that could actually make you sicker, and or you could even die. What's the most important system in your body for staying healthy? What do you think? Is it cardiovascular? Is it the endocrine? Is it the respiratory? Is it the immune? Here it is. It's this huge network of nerves and communication that is set up through your central nervous system. It is your master system. And at the top of that system, you've got your brain, which is the powerhouse. It holds the power in that brain for everything that you would ever need it to do. Fingers moving, toes moving, heart beating, lungs breathing, immune system fighting, bowels moving. All that power comes from the brain. And the way that your body works is that power has to be able to get to everything else. And the way it does that is by that spinal cord. That spinal cord is right in the middle of that brain. It's connected at the dead center. And that spinal cord runs all the way down your spinal column. And at every single level, you have nerves that come out and are connected to literally every cell, tissue, organ, and system in your body. And as long as that power can get from your brain down that spinal cord and out those nerves, your body is going to heal, function, recover, and operate exactly like it was designed. But if there's interference or damage to that nerve system, and depending on for you individually where that interference or damage is, will directly dictate and impact how not only the tissues around that are working and how they feel, but also how every single thing that is connected to that nerve system at that level, how it functions, how it operates, how it adapts to the stress in our life. So what protects that nerve system? Did you realize that the nerve system is the only system that actually has full protection? And the reason it does so is because your brain, your spinal cord, that central nervous system is the only system in your body that doesn't replace itself. Every other cell, every other organ, every other system over the course of time actually replaces itself. There's a shelf life, but that's the one. That's the one you have from the very beginning. The first thing that develops in the womb is that central nervous system, and then it branches out and buds into everything else. And that's the only one you have your entire life, and that's why it's protected the way that it is. So I figured I would go ahead and put my x-ray up here just so you could see what I'm talking about as far as the brain being protected by that skull. The skull is your helmet. The skull is the protector. Your spine is the suit of armor. It's what keeps you upright. It's what allows for movement, but it is the protector of that spinal cord. So is your life stressful? Can you relate with one or all of these people? How's your day to day? How do you make it through? All the symptoms, all the diseases that we experience as we go through our life are connected to this right here. It's all connected and comes back to this main culprit, which is stress. And the stresses in our lives can be broken down into 3 different categories. The first category being mental stress or emotional stress. And I don't feel like there's any shortage of that. From the pace, the schedule, from relationships to children, to extended family, to finances, to work, to children again, right? That's the reality of where we are. It's the chemical stresses that we're exposed to. From medications, to the things we put on our skin, to the stuff that's in our environment, to the air we breathe, to the water we drink, to the foods we eat, and all the chemicals that are connected to that. And then lastly, it's the physical stress. It's the stresses that we encounter that are macro traumas or large physical stresses like car accidents, major falls, wipeouts, sports, and it leads all the way into the micro traumas, which are the seemingly little things that aren't doing anything, that are really destroying our bodies and our lives a little bit at a time. It's the repetitions, it's the overuse, it's the poor posture, it's the carrying things, it's the movements, it's those things that we don't even really think about that can play such a big role in the stresses that we have. So what is all this stress doing to your body? How does it affect you? What actually goes on the inside? Stress causes this condition. It's called subluxation. Now, subluxation is the big word for damage or interference. But if you break the word down, it actually is pretty awesome. Sub means less, lux means light or life. And so when someone is subluxated or has subluxation, it just means that their body is functioning at less than potential. It means that there's less power in the body than should be, because the power that's in the brain can't get to the body. When there's subluxation at the cellular level, at the joint level, at the tissue level, these are the things that happen. From joint misalignment and soft tissue damage to inflammation, which not only causes disease, but it also makes you hurt. To nerve irritation, to muscle spasms, to joint fixations where you feel tightness and stiffness and you can't move, to actually eliciting the stress response which then starts to affect hormones and causes all kinds of problems and cascades within your body. This subluxation is a direct response to the stress and choices in your life and causes interference and damage to the nervous system. And depending on your susceptibilities, depending on your tendencies, the stress in your life will land in certain areas, and depending on where they land will dictate the type of problems that show up. So what is the real cause of all these health problems? Subluxations cause health problems. Subluxation and stress on the nerve system lead to dysfunction and lack of efficiency, and if left there long enough, because your body is smart, it will lead to symptoms. And those symptoms are specific to you, your body, how it reacts, how it adapts. But it leads to those symptoms because that's the way that your body gives you signals to let you know something's not right. When you know you've crossed over, when you know the stress in your life has overpowered your ability to adapt, these are the types of things that show up. The headaches, the pain, the blood pressure issues, allergies, asthma, multiple sclerosis, depression, anxiety, you name it, digestive issues. That's why they show up. They're not showing up on accident. They're not showing up because your grandma had them. They're not showing up because it's just bad luck. They're showing up because you have a body that was made to perform and function on its own and to stay healthy. And right now, the stress in your life is not allowing it to do so. And that is what causes subluxation, which causes the symptoms and the problems that you have. So is your body trying to tell you something? You know, sometimes we have things around us that try to tell us something, right? So if you're in your house and you hear your smoke detector go off, what's it trying to tell you? If you're driving your car and you see this check engine light come on, what's it trying to tell you? It's trying to tell you that something's not right. And if we would take duct tape and put it over that light just because we don't want to see it, would that actually fix it? If we kept driving that car, what would actually happen? So why is our body any different? If our body is giving us a warning signal, if we just cover it up, what do you think is going to happen? Will we get better? Will it just amazingly, mysteriously go away? Or do those problems, the things underneath the symptom that actually cause it in the first place, does it just cause that problem to get worse? So how are your nerve systems functioning? How are your kids' nerve systems functioning? How are your parents' nervous systems functioning? How do you know? X-rays are a great window into your nervous system. They not only show us the areas that have accumulated stress and damage, they also show us the tendencies and the places that you typically will have that stress land. It also shows us how long it's been there and to what level it's being affected. And depending on, you know, where you may show up on this picture, what phase of degeneration you're on, really gives us an indication of how much stress that body's been through and gives us a direct linear connection to the symptoms that you have. And that's why it was so important that you got these x-rays taken, because these are the things that you don't feel. As they're happening, you don't notice it. As you're shifting from one phase to the next, you don't notice it. And that's why, along with the pH, along with the balances, along with the other testing that we did in the office, we're trying to get a baseline on just how much damage and how much accumulation of stress you've had. And then that gives us a place to stand as far as helping you get rid of it. So as we put this together, this is how it all shakes out. And as you see this, I hope you start to see the power of bringing this all together. And the culprit that we've been taught, the issue that we've been taught to focus on our entire lives, is not the culprit at all. At the end of the day, the stress in our lives and the effect that that stress has on us is the determining factor of the outcomes that we experience when it comes to our health. And those stresses can be broken down into the physical stresses, the chemical stresses, and the emotional stresses. And those stresses lead to this thing called subluxation. And the reason subluxation is important is because it leads to interference building in that nervous system. And the reason that is significant is because the nervous system controls all the other systems in your body. And as that loses efficiency, as that system breaks down, as those other systems are affected, that leads you to all the symptoms and diseases that we experience. And the problem is that our whole lives, we've been taught to focus on the bottom. And the actual problem has been coming from the top the whole time. And the way I see it is just imagine in your mind this faucet that's overflowing. And the water is overflowing and it's running onto the floor. And there's this person there trying to do the best they can to mop up the water. But the problem is no one's ever shut the water off. And so that person continues to mop and tries to clean up. But because that water has never stopped, it just keeps overflowing and nothing ever changes. And that's exactly the situation that we have in healthcare. So instead of continuing to live your life focusing on the symptoms and disease, I would encourage you to start shifting that focus up towards the top at stress, and then making sure you remove the subluxations to get the stress off that nerve system so that the other systems of your body can function properly. And as you do that, the efficiency and the momentum that you will get back will be amazing. And the results that you will see will be you feeling better at the same time getting healthier. So what should you do with the problems on your nervous system? You should do exactly what you're doing. You're working right now to get those stresses, those interferences, that damage, those problems within your nervous system. You're working on getting those removed right now through your adjustments, through building rhythm, through creating momentum, and as we continue to go through breaking bad habits, and then by stabilizing and strengthening to make sure those things don't come back. When's the best time to deal with your health? When's the best time to get your body back on track and to experience the health that you know you want? To get your energy back, to feel better, to lose the weight, to start shifting your body in a different direction, to decrease the dependency on the medications and the need for surgeries. When's the best time to do that? You know, earlier we talked about the three main reasons why we're in such a health crisis. And we talked about the first two being personal responsibility and literally, if you want to take action, not having the definition of health that you need. But the one that gets us mostly is this last one, and it's procrastination. And the reason it does is because in the back of our minds we have these 5 words in our brain: maybe it will go away. And we convince ourselves that we'll do something different after the new year, after summer, after vacation, after the wedding, after the anniversary, after the birthday party. But because life is life, because schedules are full, because we get so caught up in what's going on in the day-to-day, that the next thing you know, those days becomes weeks, the weeks become months, and the months become years. And we get so used to what we're used to, we get so tolerant of less than where we should be, that we push it off. And that's why it's such a big deal that you're actually walking through this right now, that you've actually committed and are taking action steps to go in a different direction, because you deserve it, because you're worth it, because it's time to do something different. And so keep it up, stay on track, ask questions, let us help you. We're here for you. It is extremely important to me and my entire staff that you get amazing results. Like, we want that for you. We know that the better health you have, the more on purpose you'll be, the more passion you'll have, the more impact you'll have. And not only will you be able to do the things that you need to do, you'll be able to do the things that you want to do, and you'll be able to do the things that you're called to do. So start implementing, stick with it, keep the momentum going, and experience better results faster.